And this is CaMMVetsMedia, Ken Kreitzer with our weekly Army football huddle. The Black Knights on a solid win on Saturday over Rice, and they have a short week and will play in Philadelphia on Thursday night against Temple. Um, let's welcome our team. Richard Miller from down in Florida. How are you, Richard?
Very well, Ken. Looking forward to seeing Army get back to work after a good win Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. And calling in from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama. We have Colonel Sam Houston. How are you, Colonel?
I'm great, Ken. It feels good to be 3-0. Solid win on Saturday, and the Owl Annihilation Tour continues.
That's right. Third team in a row that has Owls as their nickname comes up on Thursday night. Chuck Donegan from Long Island. How are you, Chuck?
I'm good, Ken. How about you?
Okay,
All
okay.
right.
And from South Philly, South Jersey, we have Steve Shalou,
Good
former
evening.
Army football player. Steve, how are you tonight?
I'm living the dream.
Okay, well, it's kind of a dream start for Army, 3-0, 2-0 now in the American Athletic Conference, and a chance to improve on that Thursday night against Temple. And we'll reflect on Army's game at Mikey Stadium. Pretty good crowd there this past Saturday, and a game that Army looked solid. Colonel, what was your impression of the game? Army's 37-14 win.
Well, it was a solid victory for sure. And the first half was about as perfect a half of football I've ever seen Army play. It harkens back to maybe the year they blanked Air Force out in Colorado Springs. The play calling was outstanding. The execution on the part of both the offense and the defense was a clear indicator that they were well prepared for the game. The bye week was not a letdown of their momentum. And clearly, the Army team, especially the starters, have got a serious chip on their shoulder to go out and prove something every play and every down. The offensive line, we talked last week about Temple's defensive line and the big guys they had up front, and you never would have known it. Army's offensive line is very legit so far this season. They're the biggest line I think Army's ever had, but they're not just big guys. They are big guys that are mobile. They are violent. They work together. They create holes, and they work together as a unit, and they get after it, and they wear down defenses, and it's beautiful to see. The first half showed Army's offense go 4-0 on possessions and scoring touchdowns, getting up to a 28-0 halftime lead. And there's very little that I can say critical about the first half alone. Matter of fact, there's practically nothing I can say critical about it. It was really a great half of football. In the second half, there were a couple of head scratchers. The fake punt, which we don't need to. Well, I'm not going to go deep into it. I know it all caught us wondering why on 4th and long, with a 30-0 lead, that they were going to go run a fake punt and basically expose another trick in the special teams toolbox, because we know that it didn't work, and it led to a short field, which gave Rice an opportunity to go get a score. And then in the fourth quarter, and then there was a kick out of bounds, a kickoff out of bounds. And then in the fourth quarter, I was all for putting in the second and third string and give them an opportunity to get reps on offense. What I was not all for was the play calling. I do realize that they made some penalty mistakes, some 6 inches between the ears types of mistakes, whether it be motion penalties or whatever, that were not very conducive to them mounting a drive. But I wanted to see the second and third string team have the opportunity to mount a drive and score. And I just didn't feel like the play calling was really up to giving them that opportunity. And so they did sputter. Part of it was execution. I thought part of it was play calling. Clearly, Monken had made the decision to take his foot completely off the gas on offense in the fourth quarter. So that was my only minor comment that wasn't of the complete positive variety. But I'll close it with something very positive, and that is what I've been saying all along. I've been a big fan of Bryson Dy for a long, long time, and that dates back to when he was still a backup a couple of seasons ago. Bryson Dy is the real deal. He's a leader. He's a stud. He's very comfortable in that offense. He clearly is the man in charge of that offense. He puts his 150% effort into every single play. And he's getting better at throwing the ball and making those types of reads. And the shades of Ronnie Makeda, once again, I'm just going to say, Ronnie Makeda was the quarterback from Texas that led the 96 team. And Bryson Dy is a bigger, he's like a man at playing quarterback version of Ronnie Makeda. And he is a serious winner. So I'm very happy with this past weekend's game.
Okay, Sam Houston. And Steve Shalou, what was your takeaway on Army's 37-14 win? Another big effort by the offense, generating 288 yards rushing in the game.
My biggest takeaway is that I'm very excited about the fact that they're able to replicate success. And when I say that, offensively throwing that long bomb to short for a touchdown on the first series was reminiscent of the FAU touchdown that we scored. And we're able to do that not as a fluke, but as a matter of course. So that's exciting to see that we're able to do that. We're keeping the ball off the turf. And Rice had a big defensive line, and we were able to manhandle them up front. And we dominated the line of scrimmage. We scored relatively rapidly, and still our time of possession was lopsided as usual. So, super excited what we did there. Defensively, I wasn't as amazed as I was against FAU, but they are building upon their success, and they held this team at bay. And I thought it was a great effort all the way around. This offensive line is probably going to go down as the best offensive line Army's ever had. And I'll make that statement right now. I mean, we have two of our offensive linemen that are on first team PFF, Pro Football Focus, first team studs, along with NC State and Virginia Tech as some of the best linemen in the country. Our right guard and right tackle are doing that. In the conference, PFS has three with the left tackle.
And that was I saw that Paolo Generali and I believe it was Lucas Scott. Were those the two?
Yes. Nationally, yes. Finucane was added to the conference team, first team offensive lineman, along with those other two. I mean, Lucas Scott is ranked as the third offensive lineman in the country right now.
Wow.
And so, and that is one, not expected, but number two, they are building upon that. We're running the ball on the left-hand side with success. And to Sam's comment, I was relatively shocked and surprised at how well we moved the ball with the second team out there. Your plays will decrease because they just don't have the full package with some of the players. So they're gonna call it conservatively. just remember, eh, Coach Monken is kind of he's a tale of two cities. On one side, he never ever wants to put the ball in the turf, so he wants to put his players in the best place and the best opportunity to succeed, and he doesn't want to turn the ball over. The other side of it is that he's there isn't a fake punt or a YouTube video of something fake on special teams that he's not willing to try either, which could be a sudden change situation. We've been 2 out of 3 thus far, but this last one, and self-admittedly, he said they called the wrong play. But you know, one part of me says it's great that we're showing them these things because it gives them a lot to prepare for, and it makes them play every down of every series. The other side of it is, you know, if you're not expecting something, you're foolish, right? So we're going to become less and less successful doing that. All in all, another great team effort. The fact that we were able to get those players out in the second half and start their rest process for a short week. This is a short week, Thursday night game. We kept people relatively healthy, not dinged up, and we were able to do a short week. And they only played a half a game, which is about what a full practice is like. So they should be recovered and rested for tomorrow night. And Thursday night. I fully expect that they're going to come out ready to rock and roll on national TV Thursday night game on ESPN.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Chuck Donegan, you were at the game. What was your impression of Army's performance?
Ken, it was definitely a solid one in the first half. Yeah, great plays all around. I think definitely close to perfection. The second half wasn't quite there, but they did get the job done to pull off that solid victory, and especially the solid performance by Bryson Dy. So, all told, I think it was a great game of football, 37-14. Definitely nothing to sneeze at.
Okay, very good, Chuck. Thank you. And Richard Miller, what was your thought? I know you watched it from your vantage point in South Florida.
My take on the game, another I think superb Army victory. They just really keep on rolling right along against the Rice team. I just think it was one of those games where first half excellent, just keep really pushing it. Definitely pedal keep pushing it together. Not really, I think, again letting up in the game. I also was even impressed by definitely the running game of Bryson Daly and Dwayne Coleman. Although Coleman had 24 yards running, Bryson Daly with 145 yards, 3 touchdown runnings and three passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns in the game. So critical and so smooth. I think it's one of like the best performances that Army's had so far this year, and really
Oh,
dominating.
yeah, no doubt about it. The Bryson Daly's having one good game after another, building on it. The one concern I have looking at it, and I talked to Bryson afterwards, that how he handles the amount of carries he has in the game physically. And he said it's not a problem, but he carried 23 times for 145 yards, ran for the 3 touchdowns. But he ran about 40% of Army's running plays. Kanye Udo got it 8 times, Dwayne Coleman 6 when he went in. And Jack Rendina, the fullback, got 6 carries. Everybody else was Samari Howard at 3 carries. And that's just my concern is how much they want Bryson carry the ball himself. And he was getting big yardage running to his left in particular, as Steve was talking about. Do you guys think he can hold up with the amount of running that he's doing? Or would you rather see him distribute the ball to some of his other offensive players, get the ball more to Noah Short and Miles Stewart and Aiden Reed and company?
Yeah, I'll make an initial stab at this, Ken. So I did watch the post game videos, the one you posted with Bryson Daly, and And, there's some good questions you asked him. And first off, when you asked him about, was he concerned about, the number of carries? And obviously we're talking about, the type of pounding that his body would be taking if he's carrying the ball at many times. And what I loved about his response was before he even said a word, he looked at the offensive lineman that was sitting next to him. I don't remember which offensive lineman it
Lucas
was.
Scott.
Lucas Scott. Okay, he looked at Lucas Scott and they kind of like smirked at each other. And then he gave his answer. And why that rang home with me, it just solidified the fact that Bryson Daly's not he's not a normal quarterback. he's a former linebacker who is built for punishment, and he wants to go punish people. And so I think that he relishes the opportunity to carry the ball and drag defenders down the field and sprint 40 yards down the field and level a defender to spring a few more yards for a run on the outside and things like that. He's flying all over the place. I think as fans, we get worried that, hey, you're exposing your body too much and you might get hurt. But his answer though was actually very spot on as well. And if you go back and look at the 3 games that we've played, that Army's played so far this year, the distribution of the football has been different on every single game. And at FAU, there was a lot of distribution to the outside. Noah Short was the leading rusher for that game. And then in the initial game, there was an even distribution practically between Noah Short, Bryson Dy, and Kanye Udo. So this game, what Bryson's response was that Rice came prepared to play the perimeter game, and we made adjustments and saw that the quarterback, the quarterback zone plays were one of our best plays to have for the type of defense that they were lining up against us. And it led to the fact that they didn't pitch it to the outside as much as they normally would. And it also led to the fact that Bryson Dy was keeping the ball a lot more, and it was very effective. So kudos to the offense, kudos to the offensive coordinator for, recognizing the type of plays that needed to be called based on what we're seeing on the field from the Rice defense. And it was very effective. I think that, against Temple, Army has shown several different looks on offense as far as who's carrying the lion's share of the ball or how much they distribute. And what it does is it makes on a short week, it makes Temple's preparation for Army way more difficult because they don't know what they're going to get. Are they going to get a lot of perimeter play? Are they going to get a lot of Kanye Udo on counter plays, inside the tackles? Are they going to get a lot of quarterback zone runs with Bryson Dy? I don't know. But one thing's for sure, Cody Worley is going to be ready to deliver a dose of damage to the Temple defense come Thursday night. I did want to say one quick thing. A funny moment that happened in the game is another Army player got a nickname, and that is Hayden Reed. And I don't know if it's stuck yet, but I thought it was funny when the announcer made the comment. Hayden Reed had caught a pass and turned it upfield on the sideline, and the announcer called him Hayden Reed, the Swiss Army knife of Army's football. So I think that from now on, Hayden Reed is officially the Swiss Army knife of Army's football.
Okay. Very good. Looking at the defense, a couple of new names popped up at me. Adam Cash, who's a senior inside linebacker, got in, made 4 tackles. And Cole Seawright, who's a freshman nickelback, got in on 3 tackles. So it was a game where some of the younger players got a chance to see the field and get some real game experience, which will help their development. Okay, well, enough on going 3-0. Time to start thinking about Temple and a team that's 1-3. And is struggling a bit. But I just remember when Temple would play Army over the last 20 years, they would tended to pound the ball. And it's It's a little bit different. They've been through a bunch of coaches changes, but but they did win last week against Utah State 45-29. And as I think it was Sam mentioned, they changed quarterbacks to Evan Simon. That seems to be making a difference. What's your scouting report, Sam?
Yeah, so I got curious of Temple when they played Coastal Carolina a little over a week ago. I was expecting Coastal Carolina to roll Temple based on the way Temple had played in their first two games. And of course, Navy had a time with them. But strangely enough, the game was very close. And that struck my curiosity. So I was watching Temple very closely as they played, I think, Utah State on Saturday. And I noticed that they put up some points. And so I went back and I just looked at the games that they have played so far this year, and I realized that I was just looking for what changed. What is the big difference here? The change is that after the Navy game, Temple switched quarterbacks, and their production from the quarterback position has increased dramatically, and their turnovers have decreased dramatically. And this is critical to note because the quarterback they switched to is a dual threat quarterback. And I think he also leads the team in rushing at this point. He's thrown
452 yards.
He's thrown like 7 touchdowns, 6 or 7 touchdowns, and only one interception.
Yeah.
He's completing over 60% of his passes. So he's revitalized the Temple offense. And what that means is that the Temple offense that Navy faced is not the same Temple offense that Army will face Thursday night. And that's one of the things about college football is that any given week, one team can come in and roll another one or hit somebody with something. And he watched them play earlier that year against a team that you thought was very similar to what you were bringing to the table. And they lost badly to one team, and then they give you a tough game. So I'm sure that Nate Woody and Coach Monken, I'm sure they're all over this right now. So I'm definitely not the sage that's sending the warning to the Army team or anything like that. Whatever's going on the field and the practice and the film rooms and everything else, I'm sure they're ready for it, and they're well aware of what I'm talking about. But for the fans who have been watching and they keep saying, and this is where I was coming from, is that at the West Point Society gathering that we had to watch the game this past week, we were also watching the Temple score, and people were like, man, what's going on with Temple? They sucked this year and everything else. And I said, yeah, I think this is a tale of two different Temple teams. And so don't think that the Temple team that played Navy is going to be the same team that rolls into Lincoln Financial Field and just lays down for Army. That's not going to happen. They're playing a lot better. And they've got a kicker who now owns the longest successful field goal kick in Lincoln Financial Field history at 64 yards. So they've got a great place kicker too. This is important because we don't want it to be close at the end of the game and have Temple get the ball, because field goal position for them is a different animal than it would be for a normal team.
Yeah, well, that's got to be. I mean, have there been any? I always remember the Tom Dempsey 63-yard kick for New Orleans. That's back in the 70s, and may have been before. And that record stood for a long time. Has there been any longer kicks in the NCAA than 64 yards?
I think so. I think that he just owns the record for Lincoln Financial Field. I'm not sure that
We'll have
it's
to
the
look
record
that
for
up. Maybe
NCAA
Richard
football.
or Chuck could look that up to see what the longest field goal in NCAA history is.
69 yards.
What is it?
69-yard field goal by Ove Johansson of Albany Christensen in 1976.
And what school?
Albany Christian in
Albany
1976.
Christian. Somebody kicked a 69-yard field goal. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. We'll have to look at it and see if there's Richard, keep looking, see if you've got a Division I record.
Okay.
Our football bowl division. Okay, Chuck, why don't you take us through the other games in the American Conference this past week?
You bet, Ken.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
had quite a few, big wins, some close contests, little of everything as usual. Starting off, Miami pulled off a 50-15 victory over South Florida, while elsewhere, Tulane won a close contest against Louisiana, 41-33. Meanwhile, Navy pulled off 56-44 win over Memphis, while Liberty, East Carolina, another close contest with a 35-24 Liberty victory, while very close one between Tulsa and Louisiana Tech, finishing 23-20 Tulsa victory, while Temple did a good job, 45-29 over Utah State. Elsewhere, a big win for North Texas, 44-17 for rivals Wyoming, while Florida Atlantic couldn't pull it off against Connecticut, winning 48-14. Yeah, while Houston Christian, UTSA was another close one, 45-7 UTSA victory. And finally, Indiana pulled off a big win as well against Charlotte, 52-14.
Okay, Chuck, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And C. Shalou, what's your thought on the game Thursday night? Not far from where you live, down in Philadelphia. What's your thought on Army and Temple?
I think the fact that it is a short week will have an impact. It usually has a bigger impact on a team that's traveling, but it's not very. It's about a 2-hour drive for Army to come down the Turnpike and play in Philly. It's a familiar place for us to play with the Army Navy games that we play in. So I don't think that plays a factor into it. I think it favors a more disciplined team, which there is no doubt in my mind that Army's more disciplined than Temple will be. So I think all those things line up favorably for Army. Offensively, we are going to limit. This is the same story we talk about. We're going to limit the number of possessions for Temple. If we keep the ball off the turf, keep that time of possession up, and it's going to make them tight because they're going to have fewer. They're going to have 7 or 8 possessions the entire game. They have to score on a high percentage of those because Army's offense is a juggernaut. It is a machine, and it is frustrating to an opponent, and it will grind you into the dirt, and you have to answer every time. So if you get a holding penalty, you get a motion penalty, you're offsides, it's going to stop their drives, but we have the ability, one, to be able to grind through that because we've shown some resiliency when it came to 3rd and long because of our passing game is actually on point. So I don't think that it's a good matchup for Temple against Army. So Army's going to be strong, and this will be another experience gathering, exciting ability for us to further establish who we are and codify our identity on offense. And it gives us a great opportunity defensively to continue to play Division One against a team that we should beat, and it's going to make our defense better. So this is a great opportunity. We'll have a mini bye afterwards, and this is a great opportunity to Army to showcase their things.
Okay, we talk about ball control. Army really demonstrated that on its second drive of the game, going 17 plays to go 90 yards, used up 10 minutes, 52 seconds of the clock. Classic Army ball control drive, culminated in a 7-yard touchdown run by the quarterback, Bryson Dy. We've got Jack McGurk joining us. Jack, thanks for joining us. We always love your photo.
Happy to be here.
So great. That's one of the great photos you can get at Mikey Stadium. 4 helos flying in the pregame welcome to the team. Did you keep track? I know Chuck mentioned score of Navy's playing well this year. What do you got on Navy? Anything on Air Force?
Well, I'll start off with Navy. Heck of a game for Navy. As Chuck pointed out, 56-44 win for Navy. Navy had 566 yards total offense, 56 points on just 53 plays. Huge game for Navy quarterback Blake Horvath. He rushed for 211 yards and 4 touchdowns on 12 carries, while completing 9 of 12 pass attempts for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of Blake Horvath's rushing touchdowns was a 90-yard touchdown run with 8:22 left in the game, putting Navy up 49-30. That 90-yard touchdown run is the fifth longest run in school history for Navy. And the score, Memphis came back. It was 49-44, and Memphis drove the ball down to the Navy 26. But Raywan Lane came up with an interception for Navy, ran the ball back 86 yards for a touchdown, sealing the win for Navy. They're 3-0, and they are heading down to Birmingham, Alabama to take on UAB this weekend. Air Force had a bye week after getting beat up by Baylor. It was a 31-3 win for Baylor over Air Force. And Air Force is on the road at Wyoming this weekend. Wyoming, not a great team this year. They're 0-4 this season, so this could be a game that Air Force picks up a win.
Yeah, we'll see. A really sure Wyoming is trying to get its first win of the year. And very good, Jack. Appreciate it. Richard, give us a couple of the top 25 scores from last week. There were some big games.
Okay, the top 25 scores from last week. Let's see. We've got number one Texas defeating Louisiana Monroe 51-3. We've got number 3 Ohio State defeating Marshall 49-14. Number 5 Ole Miss and Georgia Southern, and Ole Miss victory 52-13. Number 6 Tennessee and number 15 Oklahoma 25-10. Tennessee gets the win. Number 8 Miami defeating University of South Florida 50-15. Number 7 Missouri winning in double overtime over Vanderbilt 30-27. Number 10 Penn State 56-0 over Kent State. Number 11 USC and Michigan. Michigan Wolverines pull it out 27-14. The number 18 Michigan gets the win. Utah, number 12, defeating number 14 Oklahoma State 22-19. Number 13 Kansas State defeating BYU, and Kansas State BYU getting the victory 38-9. Number 16 LSU and UCLA. LSU winning 34-17 over number 16 LSU. Miami of Ohio losing to Notre Dame 28-3. The number 17 Irish. Number 19 the Louisville Cardinals 31-19. Louisville stinging the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Iowa State 52-7 over Arkansas State. Iowa State is ranked number 20 in the country. Number 21 Clemson defeating NC State 59-35. Also, you have let's see what are the wait. Well, I think that's it. Number 25 Texas A&M 26-20 over Bowling Green.
Okay, very good, Richard. Thank you. Just looking at the American Athletic Conference standings, I mean, maybe a lot of us thought that Memphis was going to be the dominant team in the conference this year. So far, that's Memphis is 3-1, but they have now a conference loss to Navy. Army, Navy, both 2-0, both 3-0 on the season. And followed by North Texas, 3-1, East Carolina, South Florida, and then Tulane and Tulsa, 2-2, which Army will be going out to play next week. And UTSA. Steve, any trends you see so far in the overall conference standings?
Yeah, it's interesting because when we were being courted by the AAC for us to join them, the big sticking point was the conference championship game happening the week before Army Navy. There was a lot of machinations, a lot of going back and forth about that and how that would be if Navy and Army were to play the week before Army Navy and then play at Army Navy. The interesting thing about it is, and the response was, that's not going to happen, and lightning in the bottle, and all the rest of the stuff. But maybe some of you guys will agree with me. Since COVID, the world's a wacky place, and things happen really like Murphy's Law is in full effect. And when I was talking with some people in the athletic department about that, I said, it'll happen within the first 2 years because that's how whacked out the world is right now. And we are on path for the first year that we could be meeting Navy in the conference championship game, prior to Army Navy. And, it blows my mind, but we are on a collision course for that to happen. And how does that affect Army Navy in the future? Because that was such a sacred game. But now it's a little less sacred because we might be playing them the week before. I mean, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but our schedule lines up really. If you look at the games that we have coming up and the success of those teams thus far, if we keep our heads screwed on straight, this team has shown that this is a team that doesn't take their eye off the prize thus far, right? Army teams in the past, we always had letdowns and stuff. This is more of a cyborg Terminator type team. We get the ball,
Cyborg
we move,
Terminator team. Okay.
right?
With a Swiss Army knife.
With a Swiss Army knife, right? So if we're continuing down this path, and Navy's continuing down this path, now October 5th with Navy and Air Force will be a big tale, but I'm telling you, we could be on a collision course for something historical. And I like it. I don't like it. I don't know how to feel, but it's fun to be on the ride with us for sure.
Okay. Well, I'm sure Memphis and South Florida and Tulane and are going to have something to say about who's in the conference championship game. But it is something. It's really something for the players on both Army and Navy to shoot for. Navy's done that, has been in a championship game. They lost, and then they lost to Army the next week.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to add to Steve's point. As far as Army and being the cyborg Terminator team with a Swiss Army knife, he mentioned, in the past we've gotten used to Army making, mistakes or having that trap game where they seem to have momentum and they roll in and then they lose because they made some boneheaded plays and stuff like that. This year's team so far has lived up to the cyborg Terminator with a Swiss Army knife type of team. And what I mean by that is that when that first string offense is in, there's been times in the FAU game and in this past game where they committed a penalty straight away in a drive, and it didn't even make them flinch. They just got back in the huddle and just lined up and ran, to wit the 90-yard drive that you're talking about this past week. That drive started with a false start and made it 1st and 15 on the Army 10. And, they just well, whatever. That's just an extra 5 yards we got to get for a first down, and we're going to do it. And the defense knows that we're going to run this play or this play, and we're still going to do it, and they're not going to stop us. And that's just the way they are. I did want to make a comment about the Navy game, and kudos to Navy. I mean, I watched the game, and I was surprised, as many people were. But I'm going to tell you what I was more surprised by. I was more surprised by how woefully unprepared Memphis showed up playing, especially from the start. They showed up acting like they already had the game won. Their defense played as though the scout team had not even looked at Navy's offense, much less tried to run it in practice at all. Their defenders were often lined up in the wrong gap, players looking in the wrong direction, players out of position, completely confused on many of Navy's plays. And some of the credit goes to Navy and their new offensive coordinator for sure. And the fact that, hey, even when defense is making mistakes, the offense still has to execute. And Navy on offense, they executed for sure. And it wasn't until, little flashes later in the game in the second half that Memphis kind of adjusted a little bit and still made boneheaded moments where their defenders were completely running out of position and looking in the wrong direction. Horvath's 90-yard touchdown is a great example. Just go back and look at it and watch the second level of Memphis's defense and watch what they do on the Navy right side of the ball. where Horvath makes his read and runs. He recognized that the defenders were running away from him and not even looking at the misdirection that he had done, and he just took advantage of it and ran straight up the field for 90 yards untouched. So, but really, that game boiled down in the end. I think that if Memphis played Navy 10 times, Memphis would win 9 of those games. They lost the one that they came in that they were overconfident after beating Florida State, and they didn't prepare, and they just assumed that they were going to roll Navy, and they found out otherwise. And the game in the end boiled down to which defense, because both defenses, by the way, were terrible, absolutely terrible. And if you want a lead lining from the game from Navy, it's that their defense allowed 600 yards and 32 first downs and a lot of long yardage plays, including on the ground. They gave up way over 200 yards rushing. But what it came down to was when a defense needed to make a play, it was Navy's defense that made a play exactly when they needed to keep the game in line and let them hold on to win the game. So, but kudos to the Squids. I'm glad that Army doesn't have to play Memphis next week because they wouldn't show up and play the way they played against Navy.
Okay.
But a lot. Listen, I don't want to take the thunder from Jack because he's going to tell us all we need to know about Navy. But this new offense that Navy's running is a variant of the Delaware wing T. And Delaware wing T, I mean, what's old is new and new is old, right? It all comes full circle. Delaware wing T is almost indefensible. If you run it well, you can almost not defend that offense. And they've gone back to that, and it showed. They had a couple tune-up games, and now they are operating with that. Now we'll have a much better chance running against that type of offense because we're used to the double slot, double wing type situation. But until we can figure that out in the AAC, they're going to be somebody we're all going to have to deal with for a couple of years until it's a copycat league. It's going to take a little bit of time, but they do it well, and hats off to them to make that change. So it's going to be interesting to see how Air Force plays it.
Okay, very good. Very good.
And I hate that Horvath is a junior, by the way. He'll be back next year.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let's see, Richard, what games are you going to be watching this week? Give us 5 that you're going to keep your eye on.
Well, five games I'll be keeping an eye on this weekend. Let's see. I will be keeping my eye on, obviously, number 2 Georgia against number 4 Alabama. Also, number 3 Ohio State taking on Michigan State. Let's see. Also, Arizona and number 10 Utah at 10:15. Of course, also let's see, five games. We've got number 12 Michigan taking on Michigan. Number 12 Michigan taking on Minnesota at high noon. You've also got number 15 Louisville taking on number 16 Notre Dame at 3:30, and also the other game that I'll be keeping an eye on is number 17 Clemson taking on Stanford at 7:00 on Saturday.
Okay, very good. Chuck, did you have the list of the American Conference games?
Yeah, we'll have that 1 second, Ken.
Okay.
Have that up for
Jack,
you.
we got we said Air Force is at Wyoming.
Air Force at Wyoming. Wyoming's
Okay.
0-4 this year, so it's going to be a tough one for. That should be a tough one for Wyoming. Could be a nice win for Air Force there. And Navy's heading down to Birmingham, Alabama, UAB, this weekend.
Okay. Got it, Ken.
Go ahead, Chuck.
All right. So, yeah, got quite a few good matchups for the week ahead. Yep. It'll definitely be great to see Army take on Temple Thursday night. Look forward to that. Yeah. Meanwhile, coming up on Saturday the 28th, we've got Navy taking on UAB. It's at 12 noon on ESPN2. South Florida against Tulane. UTSA versus East Carolina. That's 4 o'clock ESPN Plus. Wagner against Florida Atlantic. Tulsa against North Texas. That's 7 o'clock also on ESPN Plus. Charlotte and Rice. And Middle Tennessee against Memphis.
Very good. Thank you, Chuck. Okay. Well, we'll be down in Philadelphia on Thursday night. Look at Financial Field. The place very familiar to Army fans from the Army Navy games. And also the last time Army was down there was in 2016, I believe. And that was the opening game of the season. Temple was coming off a big year. They had a big crowd, a lot of noise, kind of a lot of college football pomp and circumstance, and Army smoked them. Game was over barely into the fourth quarter, and it was kind of the announcement of the Jeff Monken era. Any of you guys at that one? Steve, what do you recall about the 2016 turning the tide against Temple and rolling them and kind of announcing that the Jeff Monken era had begun?
No, I remember going to the game, being there in person, and I was quite shocked at how prepared we were. I mean, we're always prepared, but it was workmanlike, and we came out and showed them what we could do, and totally dominated that game. The game that happened a number of years prior to that, where there were so many penalties called against Army, I had a bad taste in my mouth. I was playing at the link, so I was worried going into this game. But we came out and we punched him in the mouth, and then I remember us playing Temple, where we came back with a big fourth quarter comeback and threw a touchdown in the final minutes. We actually substituted a quarterback to come in and do that. And I don't know how we ever do. We grab a kid that's cold on the sideline and we put him in there to run a 2-minute offense, and he did, and we scored, and then we won in overtime. So Temple, they had their years with Rule, and they had their years with different coaches where they had a lot of they were a tough team. They're going through some tough times right now, trying to find their identity. If you look at them, they're just strewn with transfers. They're trying to figure it out, and they're having a difficult time doing it. But it's got to be, it's a Division I conference game. We got to be on point, and we got to do our thing.
Yeah, I was telling Coach Monken this, that he got a compliment from the Florida Atlantic coach Tom Herman that Army plays with players that have gone through the program, plays juniors and seniors. As Jeff Monken says, you can't transfer into West Point except as a freshman. Mm-hmm. And Herman said that at Florida Atlantic, he's got 50 transfers on the roster. So that's going to be more and more of a factor when you look at teams, is just simply how many transfers do they have, and how are they fitting those players into the team. So,
and Ken, with the 12-team playoff now, there's going to be a lot of data that you're going to be able to collect from. And if you look at NCAA basketball, we had the one and done years, and now we're showing that the teams that stick together and play 4 years are the ones that are going to be really long in the tournament. And with a 12-team playoff, we're going to see a lot of data of, all right, is it because we're recruiting and holding on, or is it because we're flashing the pan with transfer portal people? And then whatever seems to be successful will be the way that college football will move for a few years. So there's going to be a lot of trend setting, a lot of people watching over that. And if Army or a team like Army can make some waves, we'll set the standard, because you can't, we talk about, if you watch the show Friday night, the CBS show, that they did a little docudrama series on Army football. And
great show.
Yeah. And the one thing I hated about that show was it was only a half hour. That's what I really hated about it. Right. So, but I will tell you that the common theme, and it's something that our coaching staff does amazingly well, is the brotherhood, is taking care of each other and feeling that there is something bigger than just yourself. And if you look at the number of players that have left to the portal, it's relatively low, because they really truly feel they would be letting their brothers down by doing it. It'd be the most selfish move they could make in doing that.
Absolutely.
So,
Steve, go ahead.
Go,
I'm
Kevin.
just going to say one other question I was going to put on the table before our lightning round is a continued, I don't know what you call it, but the conference realignment and the battle now going on between the Mountain West Conference, the resuscitating Pac-12, the American Conference. The American Conference teams have said they're not leaving; they're going to stay. Memphis said that, declared that this week. But you have 4 teams in the Mountain West going to the Pac-12, and Pac-12 looking for more, and the Mountain West commissioner fighting back. I think there's already a lawsuit going. Anything that looks like it's good for college football or for the students out of all this, uh, competition, fighting for teams?
But I think that the news that came out about the American Athletic Conference was good news. I think stability within the conference is what's best for the student athletes. They get recruited to come play, and they expect to play a certain competition. And what does not help is that when they show up on campus, they realize there's a volatility of the conference that they're aligned to, and that there's a merry-go-round of different teams that you potentially may play, and there's always that uncertainty about your own school as well. I think that Army's addition to the AAC is actually up the level of competition of the AAC. I'm not saying that's the reason that Memphis decided or made the announcement that they're going to stay in the AAC. I will add, just a quick comment to Steve's point about, the whole transfer portal thing and Army. It's a little bit about what we talked about in one of our previous huddles, and that is, the beauty of Army football. And, you got to throw in the other service academies because they pretty much operate on the same talent pool and recruiting that we do. And, transfer portal, the same rules that apply to transfer portal and what we see and any benefit to it to West Point are exactly the same for them too. But I personally, I believe that Coach Monken has put together one of the premier coaching staffs in college football, and the stability of his staff speaks volumes to how much they are completely aligned to Monken's commitment to not just build a winning football team, but his commitment to each and every player on that team to help them develop better as men, as teammates, as leaders, to better prepare them for their future role as officer leaders in the United States Army. And as Monken said, and I've heard him say before, and he said in the special that was on CBS Sports Network that Steve talked about, Monken will straight up tell you that, his one regret in life is that he did not serve in the military, but he believes that his current role is a position that allows him to be in position to provide that type of character development and leader development that he can impart upon his players that they will carry with them into their Army careers, and it will benefit, the soldiers that they lead. And his coaching staff is 100% dedicated to this principle. I mean, it is so clear. When you got people like Mike Beatty and Cody Worley and Sal Saturna and these people are 100% aligned with this principle of the greater good. So there is a greater good of being the player, and that's the brotherhood. There's the greater good of being the coach, and that is the development of these young men to better prepare them to be leaders in the U.S. Army. And we talked about what's the benefit here when you got a team that's built on a bunch of people from the transfer portal. How much you may have imported a lot of talent, but what did you import as far as how much character and leader development has been imparted in them before they arrive on your campus? You don't know that. It's an unknown quantity. Whereas at West Point, the recruiting has gotten a lot better under Monken, a lot better. And though they may not be all 3, 4, and 5-star recruits, what they have entered into is a leader, character, and talent development pipeline that better builds them to when it is their time to be the next man up. They are ready and they are committed to that brotherhood. And therefore, they look to their left and right and they will not let each other down. And that speaks volumes that cannot be spoken for or even accounted for in a transfer portal.
Okay.
But I've got to interject because I disagree wholeheartedly with Sam. Our coaching staff is horrendous, and no one should ever hire them from us because you're just opening up a can of worms you don't want a piece of. Right.
Damn.
So, going on record that they nobody would want them.
You know what? I stand corrected. Steve is completely right. Our coaches are terrible. You hear that, FBS football? Our coaching staff, just leave them alone. You don't want them.
Oh, man.
Okay. I'm trying to hold on to fine coaching staff at West Point. Okay, let's go into our lightning round. Jack McGurk, why don't you lead us off? Army at Temple Thursday night.
I think it should be a good game. It's the third consecutive game in which Army is facing the Owls after UAB and Rice. Now we're on the Temple Owls. But it should be a fun game. I like Army in this game. I think I'm going to say 24-17 Army.
24-17 Army from Jack. Okay, so you think it could be a close ball game? Okay, Chuck, what's your thought on the game Thursday night?
Well, Ken, I think there's going to be a strong margin of victory over Temple. I'm feeling pretty confident about this one. Yeah, I think it's going to be, nice solid one. Final score, I think, will be 42-12.
42-12, okay. Is that 4 field goals or touchdown, 2 field goals?
Yeah, I think the 4 field goals.
4 field goals, no touchdowns for Temple. Okay. Let's say Richard for last day. See what he comes up with. Our sage. Okay, Sam, you want to offer your prediction?
Sure. It's a short week. Comes down to preparation. Army has proven very resilient this year in that chip on their shoulder and keeping their eyes on the prize and coming in a workmanlike fashion and being very focused on execution and perfection, primarily on the offensive side of the ball. I am a little still concerned about the fact that the defense still has 0 sacks so far this season. Very un-Monken-like season so far. Very un-Nate Woody-like season. I think they'll figure that out. I think they're going to start getting to the quarterback on Thursday night. So I think that we're finally going to see that first sack happen. In the end, I've thought long and hard about this. I think that the final score is going to be Army 35, Temple 21, and I believe that it's going to be kind of a similar game to the Rice game in that Temple probably has a touchdown in the first half, and then maybe in the fourth quarter they might get another couple of touchdowns to make it seem a little closer than the game really was.
Okay, Steve Shalou.
Army teams playing in prime time, so I'm going to give you a prime number score. It's going to be 37-19. 37-19 Army.
Is that a prime number, 37?
37 is a prime number.
Yeah,
19 prime number.
Yep.
37-19 Army victorious. That'll be.
I want to ask you what combination of touchdowns and field goals that is. Might be 5 touchdowns and a field goal.
It'll be
or a safety. Excuse me.
Yep, and we're going to run back a blocked field goal for a safety.
Run back. Okay. We'll look for
While
that.
these two
A block extra point. It would be a touchdown. A block extra point for a touchdown on that. Army's going to come out and is going to further solidify himself. Yeah, I'm very excited to see this, and it's going to be a blast to watch in person.
Okay.
At the same time, these two teams face each other at Lincoln Financial, just up the turnpike. It's the Giants and the Cowboys at MetLife Stadium.
Who cares about that?
Is that the same night, Jack? Is that a Thursday night game?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. There's some traffic coming back.
That's like watching both your kids who dropped out of college arm wrestle.
Right.
Okay, well, Richard, we saved you.
Well, I'm going to go that Army is going to win this game. I'm going to go 42-21 Army.
What was that, 40?
42-21.
21. Okay. Okay. Very good, Richard. I guess I'm going to have to come up with something. I will say I like that 35. I think the Army defense is going to be a little bit better. They got a lot of pride in not giving up touchdowns. And I think we're going to see a score in the neighborhood of 35-10. It's just such a refreshing thought to going to the Lincoln Financial Field, where Army lost so many games until they broke the streak in 2016. But that happened in Baltimore. And then they won it the next year back at Lincoln Financial Field on the field goal in the snow. And I think, also beating Temple in my early years covering Army football, we saw Temple run over Army a whole bunch of times. Remember the time Colby Miller was the inside linebacker for Army, and he just struggled trying to stop the Temple rushing game that year. And Colby went, by the way, has had a nice career as a U.S. Army officer. He was over in Korea, and he's done a lot as a terrific officer. But I think it's going to be interesting. Army's got a good team, solid. Temple's going to try and throw the ball. This quarterback we talked about likes to throw, and they're going to test Army's defensive secondary. And but Army's pass defense seems to be getting better. It would be nice if they could get more pressure. I think Nate Woody's going to try some stunts with linebackers blitzing, from different directions to different holes, trying to find an opening to get to the quarterback. So that'll be fun to watch. So I think it's going to be a good one. I think looking forward to going down there. I guess the weather forecast is rain on Thursday, which isn't great.
Oh.
But
Absolutely great.
Good for Army.
it's good Army weather.
I love that.
Rain never slows down the U.S. Army.
Nope.
Coach Monken's favorite line. Okay, well, anything else, guys?
Oh, Ken, I just actually looked at the Philadelphia weather for Thursday. 79. It's 30% chance of rain, but that's only after 10 p.m.
Okay, I thought I saw some more forecasts for rain on Thursday. But whatever. Rain doesn't stop the U.S. Army. Okay, guys. Well, thank you.
All right.
Richard Miller down in Florida. Thank you. Sam Houston, the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville. Steve Jalou in South Jersey. We'll see you down in Philadelphia on Thursday night. Jack McGurk in Pelham and Chuck Donegan in Long Island. Hey, I just want to always do a shout out to one of our favorite military support organizations, that being the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. They're based in Tampa. They're sponsored by the Yankees, and they provide scholarships and mentoring to families and children in the special operations community who have lost a loved one in military service. Great organization. Just saw Sean Corrigan, their executive vice president, with one of their children had just graduated from Loveless School, and they were taking care of him. So, the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, great charity to consider. So, guys, thank you, and we will see some of you down in Philadelphia on Thursday, and we'll be back next week with another edition before Army goes out to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to play Tulsa. So have a good evening, and thanks for watching.